Mike. Please help us welcome the voice of the Ball State Cardinals, the one and only Mick Tidrow. And he's with us right now. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I appreciate you having me on the show. It's a great day to talk about the Ball State Cardinals each and every day. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for coming on, man. How did you get this? How'd you get this position, and how excited are you to have it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I was a graduate of Ball State back in 2018 with my bachelor's degree, and then 2020 I got my master's from Ball State as well. And after that, it was a situation of what's next. How do I navigate what this is? And I had a job offer on the table in February of 2020. And that's, of course, right before the pandemic hits.
Right.
And my wife had graduated in December of 19. So we were both just trying to figure out, hey, what's next? What are we going to do once we're both graduated? And got this job offer to go out to North Dakota and spend 2.5 years out there right when the pandemic started. And they had everything shut down. And we were kind of figuring out, would that job offer still stand, or what would all that look like? They decided to keep the offer on the table. And so I worked for a regional network up there for 2.5 years. And then the previous person, Joel Gadet, in this position at Ball State, he announced he was leaving in March of 2022. And so a week after that, I just sent a note to people that I had connected with on campus during my time as a student and a graduate student, and just said, hey, I know you're probably a long time away from thinking about filling this position because Joel just announced he was leaving, but hey, I would love to have some conversations when you and your team are ready to talk about it. And then as the summer months went on, we had conversations and then a formal application process and interview settings, and ultimately was offered the job in July of 22. I was actually just about to go to my parents back in Utah to visit for a little while, and got the news right before my wife and I went on that trip. So it was really fun to be able to spend time with them and celebrate the big news to come back to Ball State.
How much fun is it to be the voice of the Cardinals? Because having a position like that is very coveted. I held that position at Chicago State for 14 years.
Absolutely.
And I also held it at Indiana University Northwest. I'm planning to go back to Indiana Northwest this year for basketball and
Awesome.
volleyball. We're figuring that out. But to be known as the voice, especially if you're alma mater, how does that feel?
It's the ultimate honor. I think that it is hard to put into words what it means for me to be in this seat, because there's only been two people in this seat before me. Maury Manning was in it for 56 years, and that is he was, the ultimate voice of the Cardinals, and that is a legacy that'll always stand. And then Joel was here for a decade, I believe. And so just to be the third voice of the Cardinals in almost 70 years is mind blowing. And I'm in my third year now, and it still feels kind of surreal. It's still a pinch me moment thing, because I got this job at 26 years old, and that is something I never take lightly. I carry that as, I'm honored to be here. I'm super grateful, and I'm where my feet are at as much as I possibly can be. And it means the world, because there's so many people at this university that vouched for me when I was a student, that still vouch for me today. And those are people that I'll never stop thanking and ultimately just be very grateful for. So yeah, it's something that kind of makes me emotional, just because there's that tie as a student, but then I moved from Utah to Indiana to take a chance on a career that I had no experience in yet. And so many people at that place at Ball State said yes to me for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they said yes to somebody with zero experience. And I think that speaks for itself. That is just the ultimate honor.
To take a chance on a career that you had no experience in, something I'm very familiar with. I never completed my bachelor's, and yet on December 7th, 1995, off of a pure idea, I called my first game at Chicago State, and it set me on my way. And here I am, approaching nearly 3 decades of doing play-by-play and sports talk, and it's so much fun to do. Who were your idols in play-by-play announcing that you carried with you and carry with you to this day?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of people that have helped influence me in a positive way. I think I wasn't the person who, during high school and growing up, had a feel of wanting to do this. So it was more of I have the typical story of playing baseball and football in the backyard and just throwing the ball to myself and keeping stat sheets and going through a whole 162 game season of baseball.
Yep. Yep.
I did all that, right?
Mhm.
Hey,
I was
guilty is charged with my dad. Okay, guilty is charged.
absolutely.
That got me going. As I say all the time, my influence is the late great Jim Durham, who was the voice of the Bulls for many years. Who influenced you?
Yeah, no, that's I think once I got to college, the Joe Davises of the world were the people that had a big influence on me. And Adam Amin and Brandon Gaudin, Mike Monaco, all those folks have been mentors to me as well. So it's awesome to be able to look up to those broadcasters as broadcasters, but also as people, because they're superb people. And I didn't really find out about who those people were until I got to college and started just randomly looking up people and figuring out who I could submit tapes to and stuff like that. So it's a different path. I know a lot of people have that in their head, or maybe they don't, but I got to college and said, let's try it. This sounds awesome. So those people were very gracious with their time.
I repeated that same action. I didn't get as far as I wanted to in 1990 when I got to Northeast Missouri State, but I hung out with the fellows who called games there, and it was just an absolute blast. And I think it confirmed what I wanted to. It confirmed what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It really crystallized what I wanted to do. As I said, my favorite voice of all time, the late great Jim Durham, got me started when I listened to Bulls games back home.
Great choice
in Chicago. So many people ask me that question when I say Jim Durham. Now they recognize who Jim Durham is, but those who worked in the industry as long as he did, they were the only ones who recognized who JD was. Joe Davis, fabulous voice. Of course, the voice of the Dodgers, voice of Fox Sports NFL. Brandon Gaudin, Adam Amin. I had the pleasure of meeting him in 2013 when I covered the Big Ten basketball when I was covering Northwestern, which leads to one of my other favorite voices of all time, the voice of the Northwestern Wildcats, Dave Ennett. So I've had him on my show several times. He's been a very, very dear friend. What sports do you call at Ball State?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Jack of all sports.
Been there.
Yeah.
No. Wait. Still there. Still there.
Yes, and. But so for the radio gig portion of it, which was the original gig that I was hired on for, and it's kind of evolved and changed for me the last couple of years. But football and men's basketball on the radio, and then a lot of women's basketball, soccer, field hockey, baseball, softball, and a bunch of others on TV on our ESPN Plus platform through the Mid-American Conference and ESPN contract. So it's awesome. I probably do about 50 games on TV a year and another 50 on the radio. And it is a setup here at Ball State that is unique, and it's amazing. And I'm super grateful to be able to do that many events on 2 different platforms. So if we have a sport on campus, we're either trying to do it on TV or we have done it, and it's amazing because we have such a great crew at our university media services. But yeah, if it's on the schedule, we'll probably try and get it done if it's logistically and equipment feasible.
I got to tell this story. I've told it to the guys. I'll tell it to a fellow announcer. When I went to Kansas City in 2002 with Chicago State, I was equipped only with a tape recorder and a microphone and headphones. You know, the headphones that kind of wobble when the old headphones. Listen, I put those in my ear. I plugged in my microphone and I was ready to go. And I picked up a microphone and it fell apart. Fortunately,
that's a new one.
the folks at UMKC were kind enough to lend me their equipment. They set me up with a mixer, an extra headset, and I was able to do the game. What's the craziest situation that you ever found yourself in?
Ooh, how much time do we have?
I think we can go a little bit over on this episode if need be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, how long
Absolutely.
do you normally have guests on? I'm just
Look,
You're good.
have fun with it, man. What's the craziest story even? What's the craziest thing that ever happened to you?
I think one of them, well, we'll start here. When I was at Beck Sports Network in North Dakota, we had certain circumstances at certain fields that there wasn't a high enough angle to where we would broadcast from in the stands or in a booth.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to go on a forklift one time. And I was way up there, and it was just me and the camera operator, and it was in minus temperatures. It was in
Lord
November, and it was
freezing.
Really cool. What's that?
And it was freezing.
It was freezing. It wasn't windy. For some reason, it wasn't windy, but it was cold. I had my snow boots on. I had a couple layers on.
Right.
And honestly, I had the time of my life because it was such a unique and different experience. Mm-hmm. And it was obviously they took all the safety measures, the precautions to make sure everything was good.
Oh yeah.
But it was so unique and so much fun that I just look back and that's a memory that sticks out. It's more of a fun memory. But we were down in the Bahamas for a tournament with women's basketball when I was a graduate student and did some of their play-by-play. Mm-hmm. They had Ethernet set up and everything for us, and the lines weren't working, at least from my board for some reason. Like I couldn't get the lines to work, and I'm sitting here thinking, what are we going to do? We didn't have a chance to test before we got there, of course.
Oh my gosh.
First day, and here we go. And so I'm sitting here I'm freaking out. I'm like, what are we going to do? And then the power went out like 2 minutes before our pregame show was supposed to start. And so I caught a break. I'm like, okay, now I can somehow maybe find a way to test this. And power comes back on, and it must have flipped a breaker somewhere. And then the Ethernet worked. I was like, this is the most fortunate I've ever been in my life.
Yep.
So power comes on, and we go like it never happened. It was, I've never experienced something like that, but the folks in the Bahamas were great to try and help test run and everything, but it was just a freak thing that who knew this was going to happen. So those are two memories that I always point to. I'll go with the third one just because you guys gave me the green light.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
The third one was also in North Dakota in a place called Carrington. And we had set up in the stands, perfect view, close to the 50-yard line, no problems. Mm-hmm. The weather had said there was going to be rain. And we thought, okay, we prepared for this. And we get rolling, and 5-6 minutes before kickoff, this monsoon just blows right
splash.
It flipped our canopy over the stands. We hurry up and ran our equipment, threw it in a storage unit in the press box. And then we call our boss. We're like, hey,
we got a problem.
We have an issue. Yeah. And he's like, it's okay. Just find a way if you get on in the second quarter, that's fine. Like, let's just work through it. And lo and behold, the three of us on site somehow got it 1 minute till kickoff. And
wow,
that was an experience because I've never been in a situation where we were standing in the storm, holding down the canopies and like protecting the equipment, because when I say it rolled in like 30 seconds, that storm rolled in so fast, we looked up and it happened. And so protect the equipment at all costs. So,
I lived in Northwest Indiana for 10 years. Been there, done that, got the T-shirt, man.
I'm glad you've experienced something like that. I shouldn't say I'm glad. I'm glad you understand what goes through those situations.
I totally 29 years at this. I totally understand.
Oh, yeah.
Where you at this week?
So we're heading to Central Michigan for football to start our first Mid-American Conference game. And then we actually have our first home volleyball match on TV as well. Our team's been on the road for the first month of this season. So they'll host Wright State, who's receiving votes in the top 25. So it should be a really good Friday night. And then our football crew will head up early Saturday morning, and we'll head up to Central Michigan.
I will be tuning in, and I'll get people to tune in as well. That is Mick Tidrow, the fabulous voice of the Ball State Cardinals, joining us here this morning as we kick off the Wednesday edition of Snowman in the Morning with a little bit of mic to mic. Go to youtube.com/@SIT Morning to see this interview replay in full and to see a few clips we're gonna pull from it. Definitely some broadcast stories to share. Mick, my friend, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it. I appreciate the spot charts you sent me. Go have fun. Go have fun with volleyball and football this weekend. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you both for having me on. Chirp, chirp, go Cards.
Let's go.